Peter Brown, we had you on here last week to talk about the Oculus Rift.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Hi.
You've played a lot of VR games. And then the Vive came along and we had to play more of that. So you've played the Vive now, it seems like, for a good week and change.
Well, we only got it on Wednesday.
Well, we had a
pre-production one.
Yeah.
I didn't put too much time in with that because I figured, I'll wait for the final one. They're identical.
Yeah.
But I've used it a lot at previous events. So yes, I am experienced.
And our review went up on GameSpot.com today, I believe.
This morning.
Excellent. Cool. So let's dive into this a little bit. First of all, first things first, direct comparison between the two of them. Hard to make considering, controllers are involved in one and the price points and all that sort of stuff. But what are you feeling at the moment as somebody who, if you just had access to both of them, which one would you go for?
If I had access to both of them right now, not someone who's trying to come up with a feature or a review or like a cold comparison, right? Like just a real human decision, I would choose Rift.
Really?
Yeah.
And why is that?
Far easier to set up, far easier and more comfortable to actually use for extended periods of time. And I felt like I was able to jump into the store and identify games that were interesting to me. And unlike with Vive, I found fully realized games.
Right.
A lot of the stuff in Vive was, currently is like tech demo type stuff, right? There's a game, it's like, oh, selfie tennis. And you're like, what's this tennis game? You literally play tennis with yourself. Okay. You hit the ball to the other side of the court, the camera jumps over, you hit it back. There's like no menu.
Oh, do you get
There's
sick?
no goal. No, it's fine. And Oculus it's a far more elegant and refined product. Like it doesn't have the same number of components or capabilities of Vive, but that's just right now.
Right.
Oculus is releasing their touch controllers later this year. They can do room scale VR. You just need a second sensor.
Right.
And when that happens, I think people are going to realize that is the product that is the more user-friendly by far.
Just maybe not out the box has as much options. Let's talk about the setup stuff first of all, because you set it up in multiple rooms, right? The Vive.
I had Oculus. Well, do you want me to do a comparison or just talk about Vive?
Vive.
Okay. So setting up Vive when you have enough space, the maximum playroom area is 15 by 15 feet, but you can do it in less than that. But let's say you have 15 by 15 feet. It's very easy. Granted, you have the ability to mount the two base stations, the things that project infrared light that is then picked up by the headset and the controllers.
Do they have to be floating in the air somewhere? Do you have to drill them into a wall?
It's recommended that they're at least 6.5 feet above the ground, although I was able to set them up closer to 5 feet at home because I had to. So you have to place those, you have to trace your room using one of the controllers, and it determines okay, you've got a big enough space, or you need to do it again. Doing it at home, I could have sworn the space I had was bigger than the minimum recommendation, which was 5 by 6.5 feet.
Right.
But so you trace the room, and then it takes this virtual map and it puts it in what you traced, and it says, okay, it fits or it doesn't. It was overlapping by a hair, and it was like, sorry, you don't have sufficient space to do this. Start over.
Right.
I had to do it 5-6 times and basically lie and just move the controller a little bit over the edge of my couch. And it was like, yeah, rock on, man, you did it.
Is this something that you have to then repeat every time? So you got parents coming over and you got to take down the whole thing. Do I have to do I have a preset mode or anything like that?
If you move the base stations, you will have to do it again.
Okay.
If you, for some reason, the software gets disoriented, you have to do it all again. Because there was one time where the floor had suddenly jumped, no matter what I was in, to eye level. So I was constantly looking over the ground.
Right.
Because you put the controllers on the floor and the base stations detect where the floor is. So you have to kind of go through some of that. If it gets messed up, the intention for these things is that they will be set up permanently. Valve have confidently said, we find that people make room for VR.
Right.
Which is
that's such a subjective thing though. Who knows?
Right. Who has the room to make room for VR?
Let's talk about the actual headsets themselves and I guess this is a comparison question. The Oculus feels a lot. Is it lighter or does it fit snugger than the Vive? What's going on there?
So it's lighter. The mix of materials is far better, especially when it comes to the straps. On Rift they are sturdy in just the right place. So when you go to put it on, it's stiff enough that you don't actually have to manhandle it too much. You just hold on to it to just kind of control it, but it slips on like a stiff catcher's mask.
Yeah.
Vive has 4 cables coming out of the top compared to Oculus's 1, which kind of comes out of the side. And its straps are really floppy. So when you go to put it on, the cables kind of pressure it down. So you have to do this little dance to kind of put it on, which in reality, on its own terms, isn't that bad. But after using Rift for a week, where I could just slip it on in like a second, it was a nuisance. It definitely felt like a nuisance.
Did it get loose as you were using it or anything?
No, it wasn't. No. They're not loose in that regard. They're just floppy, right? There's some rigidity to Rift straps. But what did bother me too is that, and this is subjective because of my head, I guess, because no one else has told me this, but the straps on the side are really wide.
Okay.
So whenever I put it on, it's either digging into my ears or overlapping them.
Right.
I could not get the headset to sit comfortably without that happening.
Also, it doesn't come with its own headset, right?
You mean headphones?
Headphones, yeah.
Right. No, it's got like a little plug that's dangling, and it comes with headphones that you can plug into that. But again, it still feels like a prototype. You know, like Rift has these built in. They're easily adjustable. They're comfortable. They sound really good, honestly, for just what you packed in over your head or on your headphones. It sounds really well.
So what about the quality of life sort of stuff, the UI you use, trying to surface games that work well? Because the Vive has access to like the whole Steam interface and whatnot. So is it difficult to find games that are working for? I kind of had assumed in my head that most of the games that were coming out on Rift are also coming out on Vive, but is that not the case?
Okay, so with Vive, you work through Steam VR, which is sort of it runs on the side of Steam. And
it's like the big screen stuff almost. It's
kinda,
like using...
Yeah, it's similar to that. But at the bottom of the screen when you're in the menu, you have the option to flip from Steam VR, Steam, or your desktop.
Okay.
And I really, really, really appreciated all of that. Because, you're looking at VR games and like that's all well and good, but like at the same time, like if you actually wanted, if you're in Steam and something catches your eye, you think about something, you can go look it up. If you get a notification on your desktop or whatever, you can actually go to your desktop and you use the controller as sort of like a laser pointer.
Right.
You point at things and you click with the trigger.
How can you type?
Huh?
How can you type?
It's got the controller sort of opens up to the touchpad things, so you can use those to navigate like a split keyboard.
Cool.
It works. The experience of going to the PC works so well, and I didn't know how much I would appreciate it until I started using it. There was one error I noticed where in Steam it have a video section, and so like things like Kung Fury or like a documentary on a gamer on there, and I went to go play it as though it would pop up in like a theater mode.
Yeah.
Steam said it was doing that, but then I started hearing it, and I put off the headset, and it was playing on the monitor.
Right.
So there's still some kinks to be worked out. But yeah, like for Rift, it's a much more simple experience. It is just the Oculus Home UI, and you can import videos and play them in like a theater, but that's the extent of what you can do outside of Oculus Home within Oculus Home.
So do you think there's more room for improvement then in terms of like, because the Vive has access to all this whole Steam interface thing, does that seem like it works better with just your wider PC as a tool set?
It does, provided that you are someone who is very familiar with Steam and what it's like to be a PC gamer, right? Like it's not the sort of thing that I could hand to someone who doesn't play games and say, here, figure this out. Like they're going to probably end up like in a menu somewhere and not realize what they did to get there or how to get out. Rift, on the other hand, is super intuitive.
Technically, in terms of resolution and all that sort of stuff,
they're identical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it feel any different in terms of eye space or like when you put them on?
So the way that the optics are shaped in Vive is a little bit different than Rift. Rift is a smooth optical lens. Vive seems to have these like steps. You notice these hard circles that go around.
Right.
And I'm not exactly sure why that is. I'm sure there's some research to support that it helps. But I will say images on the edge of the optics tended to blur a little bit in Rift. And this segmentation of the optic, I can't speak, the optics in Vive kind of negated that a little bit. Adjusting the distance between lenses, you have sort of a manual slider in Rift, and you don't always know, like if you give it to somebody else, you don't know where your place was. Vive has a dial that when you turn it, it actually shows you a distance like in a UI with the headset. So if it ever gets changed, okay, my distance is this. Just go right back to that, which is pretty awesome.
That is useful. Yeah, the Rift, I was adjusting that. I was like, I guess.
Yeah, right.
I'll find somewhere that looks okay, but to know like, all right, let me see one, let me see two, let me see three. Let me see one.
So it's weird. It's like they're sort of holistically, they are doing a lot of the same well, but there's just like little parts. And I guess, does it matter to you a lot, the sort of the build of the unit?
It does when it comes to it affecting comfort.
Right.
Like there is an angle to the strap of Rift that goes up and then around.
Right, yeah.
Because they clearly ran into somebody like me who can't have a strap coming straight out because it digs into your ear. There's even a little like give so you can tilt Rift forward. Whereas Vive, to do that, you have to essentially distend the strap. With Rift, it's just like a quick little tilt. And it feels great. Like it just feels like a much more thoughtfully designed headset.
But would you still, like, how much of a, because we're comparing something, like we're comparing them binarily, right? It's like one or the other. Right. But like, would you still recommend a Vive to somebody if like Oculus wasn't around, they couldn't get a pre-order for it? Like, it's still a pretty substantially well created VR headset.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's got the unfortunate thing that it has to go up against a product that came out last week.
Yeah,
I mean, these are the two, like, Sony aside, because they're in a different market, I think. Two high-end VR headsets come out in 1 week. You kind of have to talk about them in that light. But yes, it is good. It works really well. Like the 360 motion tracking stuff is great. It just needs more software right now to support it, and I think the headset needs a little more attention when it comes to design.
Last point on this, you've been playing with virtual reality for a long time, but you've been playing it quite extensively over the past fortnight.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the sort of long-term effectiveness of VR? Are you excited to go home and put the headset on? Are you excited to play more games like that? Have you felt like you've needed breaks from VR and you just want to sit down and play a goddamn 2D video game again? Like, what is your feeling from somebody who was very excited about virtual reality before I had this experience?
I think Rift presents a really good argument that VR is here because you've got developers making games that have had a lot of thought put into them and are fully fledged games. Even if some of them have just simple activities, the stuff that supports them is robust enough to keep you motivated to keep coming back. There are some experiences like that on Vive, but for the most part, it feels like it's stuck at like CES 2012.
Right.
Like, this is VR. You can do this thing, and it's kind of like a tennis racket, and this is kind of like a tennis ball. That I'm not as convinced by Vive, especially because it's so expensive and it's ridiculous to set up. Like, we didn't even get into the nitty gritty of the setup, but it's a pain in the butt. For me, because it's so simple to use, because I know exactly what I'm getting into when I look at the games on the store, Rift is the best argument for VR hitting the ground running at this point.
Cool.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Peter Brown.
Okay, can I leave?
With VR headsets coming out next week.
Oh, God. We just got a pitch from somebody for an Android-based VR headset.
Great.
But it's not one that uses a mobile phone.
Ooh.
But it uses mobile phone tech inside of it. So get out of here.
Can you call people on it? Can you like just pick up the headset and stick it off your face and go like, "Yo, ma, I'm in VR. Fuck off."
You just slip your
Speak to your mother like that?
Do you know how expensive long distance calls are?
Yeah. Do they even have virtual reality in Ireland yet?
Oh, just FaceTime me.
What a bee. She doesn't watch the show. It's fine. Hey, Mom. Sorry. Thanks so much, Peter.